A24's new Priscilla movie has already stirred up a lot of controversy, and it's not even out yet. So far, fans are speculating about how they might depict Elvis Presley and what kind of secrets of his they will expose. So in this video, we're counting down the top 10 dark secrets revealed in the Priscilla movie. Be sure to like and subscribe if you love this video and want to see more like it. Number 10, obsession with younger women. This is clearly going to be a big part of the movie, because it's one of the most disturbing yet obvious facts about Elvis that people have swept under the rug. In her book Elvis and Me, Priscilla Presley wrote that she had just turned 14 when she met Elvis, who was 24 years old and already an international superstar at the time. Despite the scandal, they started an intimate courtship that lasted 7 years before they eventually married in 1967. Now, the age difference is creepy on its own, but it becomes even creepier when you compare that to what Linda Thompson wrote in her own memoir. Thompson, who dated Elvis after his marriage to Priscilla ended, was also very young and inexperienced at the time of meeting Elvis. In fact, he allegedly told her, quote, "I want to preserve you as long as you need." Whatever he meant by that sounds super icky. Elvis reportedly took advantage of his power to manipulate young, impressionable fans whenever he went on tour. And there was a distinct pattern here. In fact, the person who wrote a historical book about him claimed that he took a group of 3 young girls with him on tour for the purpose of pillow fights, tickling, and cuddling. Well, which, let's be honest, we all know what that means. Number 9, Elvis's germophobia. While speaking to Jonathan Ross in a 2015 interview, Priscilla revealed that her late ex-husband was terrified of germs and would take this phobia to the extreme. She claimed that he even refused to use anyone else's silverware, which included the ones at high-end restaurants. She said that because of his secret germophobia, he never liked to go to people's homes to eat because he would have to take his own silverware, and that would often cause quite an uncomfortable situation, as you could imagine. Quote, "He didn't like drinking out of cups that other people had drunk out of, even restaurants or other people's homes. So when he drank, he would drink where the handle was, knowing that no one would ever drink at that side." Although this information is not widely known, Priscilla said that Elvis had been like that ever since he was a child. She believed that he just didn't like to put his mouth where other people had put their mouth, especially with cutlery and dishes, which is definitely something that most people wouldn't have known about him. Since this new Priscilla movie is going to be from her perspective, it's possible that they will show this side of Elvis and explore his real character in a way that feels different and new. Number 8, Mindy Miller incident. After Linda Thompson, Elvis briefly dated Mindy Miller before becoming involved with Ginger Alden, who was a full 20 years younger than him. It was only 2 months into their relationship when Elvis proposed to her and she accepted. The couple planned to walk down the aisle just a few months before his untimely death, and Alden even said how excited he was about their wedding and their future together as a couple. She revealed to Express that during his final days, quote, "Elvis was looking forward to many things: marriage, more children, series, films, and his next tour. But Elvis was reportedly very manipulative when it came to women and could be extremely jealous and controlling. According to sources close to the star at the time, he could get very violent. His treatment of her was horrifying, and the pair constantly argued during their time together. After one particular fight, he allegedly asked someone in his entourage to pop the tires on her car so she wouldn't be able to leave his home. And on another occasion, when she was driving away after an argument, Elvis reportedly aimed his weapon at her car and fired. This relationship was where we really heard about Elvis's violent streak. After all, you can't really ignore the way that he behaved towards certain women. Number 7, why Priscilla ended things. Because she was only 14 when their courtship began, it's really no surprise that she missed out on a huge chunk of her adolescence. She told Jonathan Ross in 2015, quote, "I was kind of lost really in who I was earlier in my life. I really didn't have my teenage years." After their first child, Lisa Marie, was born, Priscilla accused Elvis of not wanting to sleep with her after she had given birth. Elvis told her that he wanted her to recover, but Priscilla later wrote in her memoir that he had mentioned before they were married that he had never been able to make love to a woman who had a child. In fact, throughout their marriage, Elvis continued to cheat on Priscilla with other women, and she herself had her own affair with the owner of a dance studio. It's safe to say that their marriage never fully recovered. They finalized their divorce in 1973, and Priscilla said this was because her life was his life, which meant that her problems were always going to be secondary. Years later, she admitted that she did not divorce him because she didn't love him, but because she had to find out about the world. She was clearly just way too young when they started seeing each other. Number 6, extreme vanity. Fame is a terrible thing that often pushes stars into the oddest methods of trying to stay thin and beautiful. Linda Thompson wrote in her memoir that Elvis's obsession with being slim would drive him to bizarre measures to keep the weight off, including an alleged 2-week period of sedation. And that is exactly what it sounds like. Elvis mainly slept all day except for brief periods when he woke up long enough to go to the bathroom and eat a small portion of food before being sedated again and going back to sleep. She also claimed that he regularly did crash diets on just 500 calories a day. She also exposed his secret about why he constantly wore shirts and high collars. Apparently he did it to conceal his neck, which he hated. She wrote that the whole reason he wore the trademark style was to keep his, quote, skinny little chicken neck hidden from the public. Then at age 40, Elvis allegedly opted for a facelift. Quote, there had been speculation throughout the years that Elvis had his eyes done or some other mystery procedure, but that mini facelift was the extent of his plastic surgery. Well, it seems like his ex-wife was really intent on revealing a side of him that was incredibly vain. Number 5. Hidden children. Even though he's been gone for many years, Elvis Presley has always been at the center of several new scandals. One of the many that have hit the headlines in the last few years is that the king of rock and roll supposedly kept 7 hidden children from the rest of the world. The National Enquirer conducted a 2-year investigation into the hidden children of the Presley family, reportedly acquiring witness testimonies, checking receipts, mail correspondence, birth certificates, and even DNA tests. The results of this investigation allegedly proved that Elvis did have several additional children that were being kept away from the spotlight of Hollywood all this time. In fact, multiple alleged mothers of Elvis's hidden children have since come forward to tell their stories about how they met the star, and the stories do have some kind of strange similarities. One example is Desiree Romaine Presley, who is the daughter of Lucy DeBarban, and claims that her mother was in a 24-year relationship with Elvis and was always kept away from the media. But the crazy thing is that Desiree's father is listed as Randolph Presley on her birth certificate, someone who allegedly worked at the Air Force Base in Oklahoma City. Number 4. Addicted to substances. It's not unheard of for celebrities to turn to substances as a way to cope with fame and how crazy their lives have become in the spotlight. But Elvis's alleged addictions could have a very real origin when you look at the tragedy of his mother's passing. So in 1958, he was drafted into the US Army that went to Germany, but then he had to return to the US just 6 months later because of his mother's untimely passing. Many believe that this marked the beginning of the end for Elvis, who quickly headed down a path of self-destruction. As soon as he returned to Germany, it was reported that he partied heavily and would often get into fights. During this time, he also started taking illegal substances to try and deal with the grief of losing his mother. This probably snowballed, and it's assumed that from that moment on, the misuse of substances played a major role in his life. Linda Thompson wrote several examples in her memoir about these incidents with him, and she said that she often found Elvis passed out in a bowl of chicken noodle soup or under the influence of sedatives. She even says that doctors had to hospitalize him for 2 weeks after misusing a combination of medication for far too long. Number 3. The pet chimpanzee. This one is seriously messed up. So Billy Smith, who was a member of Elvis's entourage, openly talked about Scatter, Elvis's pet chimpanzee, who was essentially used as a party favor that they trained to harass women. It said that the chimp would often look for women at parties and grab onto their clothes. According to Smith, Scatter also drank heavily, quote, he could down a fifth of liquor before you knew it. Smith remembered another time when Scatter was beaten by a woman at a party for misbehaving. There had been conflicting reports about what really happened to the chimp. Some state that he merely lost his life due to old age, but Smith speculated that Scatter was poisoned by one of the maids, who was tasked with feeding him, after he was abandoned by Elvis and the crew were out on the road. Although it's unclear exactly how he passed away, it appears as though Scatter took his last breath on his own after years of living the party lifestyle. This whole thing was really sad, as it seemed like Elvis and his friends used the chimp just to entertain themselves, and then they discarded him when they went on tour. Number 2. Allegations of racism. In 2021, Quincy Jones revealed to The Hollywood Reporter that he always refused to work with Elvis because he says that he was a racist. The musician, best known for producing Michael Jackson's albums Thriller, Off the Wall, and Bad, made these comments about Elvis's supposed history of racism in an interview. The outlet asked Jones about Presley after the producer compared Jackson to the king of rock and roll. The 88-year-old musician and producer described a time he was writing for the orchestra leader Tommy Dorsey in the 1950s, and Elvis came in saying, quote, I don't want to play with him. Jones went on to call Elvis a racist and said, but every time I saw him, he was being coached by Otis Blackwell, telling him how to sing. While there wasn't an overwhelming amount of accusations surrounding Elvis's past racism, there are certainly many allegations against him for appropriating black culture and repackaging it to the general public as his own. Despite all this, it was obvious that American society still allowed him to have a very successful career, whether it was something that he did consciously or subconsciously. And coming in at number 1, extreme mood swings. In recent years, Linda Thompson has been very open about her time with Elvis Presley. She said, quote, we all know how dangerous Elvis's rage could be. Apparently, she first noticed that Elvis could get pretty angry when someone reportedly stole personal photos of one of his his ex-girlfriends with another woman. She claimed that he then decided to show off his samurai sword collection while under the influence of illegal substances, and left her fearing for her life. Although she said that he was true to his word and didn't hurt her, she was concerned because his talents were entirely impaired due to his narcotics. These were just some of the several times that his ex said that she was worried about his boiling rage. Apparently the musician even invested in a concealed carry permit to take weapons on stage with him, including several stuffed into his shoes just in case someone got too rowdy in the crowd. Even the singer Tom Jones spoke about Elvis's love of weapons during a visit to his dressing room. Tom said that he noticed a loaded weapon just sat on the side and simply handed it to Elvis by wrapping it in a towel, which sounds a little crazy to me. So what do you guys think about this video? Please let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one.